Hey there, want to make your voice heard at a Board of Supervisors meeting? We're all ears. Here's how you can get involved. First, hop online and look at the agendas. This will give you the scoop on what's coming up before the board. Each agenda item includes a brief description of the issue, the recommendations, and potential impacts. If you need more detail, check out the detailed reports online. Those are called board letters. Then, decide if you want to speak at Tuesday's general legislative session or Wednesday's land use session. You'll have 3 opportunities to have your say. Let's start with non-agenda public comment. This is your chance to talk about things that aren't on the agenda, but try and keep your topic related to county government. For non-agenda public comments, you can speak at either the Tuesday or Wednesday session, but not both. So pick your day accordingly. And keep in mind, the board can't act on the spot. They'll refer your comments to the Chief Administrative Officer, who will look into the issue. Last thing, the board will hear from the first 10 speakers, 5 in person and 5 by phone at the beginning of the session. Then all the remaining speakers will get their chance to speak after the discussion items. During the consent agenda, the board handles a bunch of routine items with 1 vote. If you want to comment on an item, keep it simple. For example, I'm John Doe speaking on item 5, and I agree with approving the contract. Discussion items are the main event where the board debates before making a decision. They'll hear from supporters first, then those against. And if you have documents, hand them to the deputy clerk when it's your turn to speak at the podium. If you want to speak, you need a speaker slip. White slips are for non-agenda comments. Turn these in before we hear from the first speaker. Green or pink slips are for specific items. Get these in before public comment begins. And please turn in your speaker slip early. If you don't turn it in before it's due, you won't be able to speak to the board. Now, you get 2 minutes to speak, but if lots of people want to talk, it might get cut to 1 minute. So, you might want to consider writing 2 sets of comments, one for 2 minutes, another one for 1. That way, if time's cut, you won't be scrambling. There's also a countdown clock at the podium to keep you on track. Once you're at the podium, stay on topic. Stick to the current agenda item. If you stray off topic, you might get a gentle nudge to get back to the point. Keep your comments related to the agenda item's recommendations because that's what the board is relying on to make a decision. Also, speak directly to the board. They're the ones making the decision. When your time's up, it's up. Overstaying might mean getting muted or even asked to leave. Now for some ground rules. For safety, keep aisles and doorways clear. If there isn't a seat, head across the hall to room 302 or the 4th floor balcony to watch the meeting. Respect is huge. Everyone should feel heard. That means you, other speakers, and the Board of Supervisors. Disruptive behavior gets 1 warning, and after that, a deputy sheriff might show you the door. So let's keep it respectful. Your voice matters, and we want to hear from you. Remember, we're all here to make a difference.
Good morning. I'll now call the March 4th, 2025 San Diego County Board of Supervisors special meeting to order. We'd like to take a moment to acknowledge the land we call home. There are communities in the San Diego region that face unjust conditions and circumstances related to the environments in which they live. The tribal nations of the San Diego region are an example of a community that has historically faced such injustices. We acknowledge the harmony that existed between the land, nature, and its original peoples who have since endured displacement, persecution, and systemic oppression. And we pay our respect to unceded territory and homelands of the 18 tribal nations in our region, the most in any county in the United States. We aspire to learn from Indigenous traditional knowledge and experiences in undoing the injustices of the past. Andrew, please call the roll for today's special meeting.
Thank you, Vice Chair Lawson-Remer. Supervisor Anderson.
Here.
Supervisor Montgomery-Stubb.
Here.
Supervisor Desmond. Vice Chair Lawson-Remer.
Here. Okay. So there's a run of show that some of our staff has that they've passed out. If you haven't gotten one, raise your hand if you have one. See, there's the team. You can grab one. Just want to explain a little bit how this is going to work. It's a special board meeting, and it's what's called a board conference. So the rules are a little bit different. This is an opportunity for county leadership to hear directly from county staff, law enforcement, hospital and community care providers, and municipal leaders from around our region, and to have a pretty frank discussion specifically about tackling the challenges of mental health and substance use in our community. To allow for a productive conversation, here's how today's conference will run. If you did not receive a printed run of show, please feel free to get one from one of the clerk's deputies. First, I'm going to be offering some brief opening remarks. Then we're going to hear from our county behavioral health experts. That's Dr. Luke Bergman and Dr. Nicole Esposito. And they will be presenting on our county's behavioral health strategy and substance use disorder optimal care pathways. The purpose of this presentation is to level set with everyone, with our board, with our staff, with the community, to provide some transparency around what we as a county are doing, what we as a county have already done, and what we as a county are planning to do. So following this presentation, we will have a questions and comments period where my colleagues on the board, as well as the Sheriff, Commander Jim Emig, and Chief Deputy District Attorney Rachel Solov, will have the opportunity to ask any clarifying questions and share their perspectives. And then after that, we will have an opportunity for healthcare and community service providers to speak. These include representatives from our hospitals, our MCRTs, and our CSUs. They will each have 2 minutes to share their insights. Important note, most individuals who are here to speak from the healthcare and community service providers have already informed us that they are here to speak. If you have not done so, if you are not sure whether or not you've done so, in other words, if you're a hospital provider and you think but are not 100% sure that you've notified us that you're in attendance, please sign up with the deputy clerk now so that I can make sure to include you in our run of show. Then we turn to our municipal partners, and this includes mayors, council members, and city officials from across our region. Again, similarly, if you're here representing a city that's in San Diego County, most likely you've already told us and we have your name on the list. If you are not sure, please make sure to let the deputy clerk know so we can include you on our list. Then we will have opportunity for public comment, and those will be 1 minute. And then to close, we have a board discussion with my colleagues where we have an opportunity to reflect on what we've discussed today, identify key takeaways, and consider next steps. So we have a full agenda, and I appreciate everyone's time and contributions, and thank you again for being here so we can get started. Thank you. Everyone in this room knows someone who has struggled with mental health or addiction. It could be a family member, a neighbor, or someone we see on our streets every day. For too long, our system has failed to meet people where they are, and instead of getting help when they first need it, people have been forced to hit rock bottom before they can access treatment. San Diego County over the last 4 years has made major changes to fix this broken system. We've expanded treatment options, dramatically grown our crisis response teams, and made it easier for people to get into care before it's too late. But we still have quite a bit of work to do. So that's why I convened this board conference to talk about what comes next, what we need to build, how we're going to build it, and what we need to do to connect treatment to housing. So now I'd like to turn it over to Deputy Chief Administrative Officer for Health and Human Services, Kim Giardina.
Thank you. Good morning, Vice Chair Lawson-Remer and members of the board. In 2022, we debuted the Optimal Care Pathways Model, which outlined the optimal capacity for adult mental health services, focusing on community crisis diversion, subacute, and community-based care to support Medi-Cal beneficiaries with serious mental illness. We have since made significant progress toward reaching this optimal capacity. Today, we are introducing the Substance Use Disorder Optimal Care Pathways Model, which aims to improve capacity within our substance use system of care to better reach and support more San Diegans with a substance use condition. With me today are Dr. Luke Bergman, Director of Behavioral Health Services, and Dr. Nicole Esposito, Chief Population Health Officer for Behavioral Health Services. I'll now hand the presentation over to Dr. Bergman.
Thanks, Kim. I'd like to start by talking briefly about the statutory role behavioral health services plays within the county as a managed care plan. This graphic illustrates both the spectrum of our services and the populations we serve. Our primary membership group, in orange on the slide, consists of people who are enrolled or eligible for Medi-Cal, who have substance use disorder, or who are deemed seriously mentally ill. However, we also extend our reach to broader groups, such as the larger Medi-Cal enrolled or eligible population, which is in blue, and even more broad to all San Diego County residents in green, because we know that catching people earlier in their behavioral health journeys increases the likelihood of connecting them to treatment before they reach a crisis. This is where our services, such as the mobile crisis response teams and crisis stabilization units, play a valuable role. Each level of our system serves a distinct purpose and specific subsets of the local population, recognizing that people may move in and out of these levels at different points in their lives. However, our behavioral health system has traditionally operated within a payment structure that emphasizes crisis response. This approach has shaped how services are delivered, often prioritizing beds and placements over longer-term recovery pathways. This disproportionate emphasis on crisis is represented by the inverted pyramid on the left of this slide, which we've shown your board many times before. And with the board's support, we've made major strides in the past several years in flipping the pyramid so that our system is better built on a broad and firm foundation of upstream, preventive, and harm reductive work. We want episodes of crisis to be the exception rather than the norm. This has meant a fundamental shift in approach from one that in the past may have emphasized numbers of behavioral health beds we could build to one that now emphasizes the number of people whom we are helping. You'll see this shift later in Dr. Esposito's remarks about our substance use continuum. But I want to lead into that by describing some of how our broader work has already begun to turn the pyramid right side up by creating service capacity that isn't about numbers of beds, but rather is about connections to people and our ability to help folks engage in recovery and stay in recovery over the longer haul. The area where we have thus far been most active is in the domain of crisis and diversionary services. Over the last 5 years, we have built a crisis and diversionary service network that didn't exist before. And at the core of this network are services like crisis stabilization units, shortened as CSUs, and mobile crisis response teams, also known as MCRTs, designed to meet people where they are and foster lasting connections and long-term trajectories in recovery. In the last 5 years, we've opened 4 new CSUs across the county, with 2 more currently in development, the East Region CSU in El Cajon and the SHARP Empath program in Chula Vista. This would bring the total CSUs to 8 across the region. We've ensured the CSUs are geographically distributed so that people can access the crisis support they need quickly and within their own communities. And we're seeing success with this approach. Between 2021 to 2024, we saw a 28% decrease in monthly admissions to our county psych hospital emergency psychiatric unit, for example. And during that same time, admissions to our regional CSUs increased by 200%. In January of 2021, the MCRT program started as a small pilot in North County with just 2 teams. In 4 years, it has grown to 44 teams countywide that respond through 911 or 988 24/7 to people experiencing behavioral health crises wherever they are. Since inception of the program, MCRTs have responded to over 12,500 crises and served more than 8,000 unique clients. More than half of people engaged by MCRT are de-escalated on site and need no further transport for care. MCRTs, as a complement to the PERT program here, have enabled a shift away from law enforcement and emergency department involvement where possible, as well as expanded access to care for those who would have needed care in the past but who would not have been comfortable calling 911. In partnership with other county departments and our provider network, we've made significant progress in expanding MCRTs and CSUs to support broad and timely access to care. And as mentioned previously, we're continuing to grow our crisis services network with 2 more CSUs coming online in the near future. As of last November, MCRTs are now also responding to K-12 school districts within the county, including charter schools, adult schools, and public schools. I'll now hand it over to my colleague, Dr. Nicole Esposito, to take you through the work we've been doing to expand services in light of SB 43 and to get into the SUD optimal care pathways model.
Thanks, Luke. Our shift from crisis care to continuous care system has positioned us well for many state-level policy changes, including behavioral health transformation and the Behavioral Health Services Act and Senate Bill 43. Senate Bill 43, or SB 43, which took effect January 1st, broadens the definition of grave disability to include severe substance use disorder and eminent concerns of personal safety and access to medical care. This will require increased capacity across all levels of care for people with substance use disorder. For SB 43, we expanded capacity in 4 key areas: education and training to ensure providers and first responders understand new legal requirements and best practices, alternatives to emergency departments by enhancing CSUs, MCRT, and peer support service in emergency departments, expanded capacity for substance use disorder treatment, and enhancements within Public Conservator's Office to update processes for individuals requiring conservatorship for substance use disorder. The expansion of CSUs and MCRTs just reviewed was instrumental in our readiness for SB 43. These teams now have processes in place to assess and serve individuals on behavioral health holds for severe substance use disorder. Our service expansion for SB 43 also aligns well with our ongoing efforts to move from crisis to continuous care. Some highlights of our treatment expansion effort include increasing opioid treatment program capacity by 300 slots, 10% expansion of general adult outpatient substance use treatment capacity, new capacity for medications for addiction and ambulatory withdrawal management, and new chemical dependency recovery hospital services for patients requiring involuntary inpatient substance use treatment. We also have several key expansions to look forward to. The Tri-City Psychiatric Health Facility is expected to open summer 2025 and will serve individuals with mental health and co-occurring conditions. 49 new recuperative care beds countywide, most of which will be available for services early this year. And by July 2026, there will also be 70 new residential substance use beds at the Substance Use Recovery and Treatment Service Facility, or CERTS, in the South region. Parallel to our expansion of substance use disorder services with SB 43, we have been working to find solutions to address some of the challenges that people with substance use conditions face. And we have developed goals for capacity enhancements that could reduce barriers to care and thereby connect more people to treatment. As Kim previously mentioned, our original optimal care pathways model in 2022 outlined the optimal capacity across various levels of care within the adult mental health system. Later in this presentation, we will share the Substance Use Disorder Optimal Care Pathways Model, or SUD-OCP model, which outlines goals towards achieving more optimal system capacity within critical substance use care. In the United States, approximately 2 in every 10 people aged 12 years or older have a substance use disorder. We know that substance use conditions can lead to chronic health issues, higher risk of injury or overdose, and strained personal relationships. But the impacts of substance use conditions aren't limited to the person who has it. A person's family, support systems, workplace, and greater community feel the strain and negative effects. This ripple effects means all of us in every community have likely been impacted by substance use conditions in some way. The cycle of addiction, hesitation or lack of motivation to seek treatment, and the stigma of getting treatment pose significant barriers that prevent people from seeking the care they need. In California alone, nearly 20% of residents need substance use disorder treatment, and within this group, just 11% are receiving the treatment they need. Despite the pervasiveness of substance use disorders, our system has long lacked a cohesive treatment strategy to identify and engage people in treatment and keep them engaged throughout their recovery journey. We see this especially in crisis settings. You may remember the inverted pyramids from our earlier presentation. While it's been true historically that both mental health and substance use systems of care have made disproportionate investments in crisis services, there is a crucial difference between the two. For substance use conditions, the most commonly used crisis services, medical hospitals and emergency departments, are largely disconnected from the county substance use system of care. As a result, we are losing out on potential opportunities to engage people in treatment because in the emergency department, connections to substance use disorder treatment are not readily available. If we were able to connect with people during these crisis touch points, we could connect with more people to treatment. If we connected more people to treatment, we would see less crisis utilization. Here's an example. Both John and James were brought to the emergency department after their spouses found them unconscious in their homes. The emergency department care team stabilized both John and James and determined the cause of each episode. John has experienced a mild cardiac mild cardiac event. James was diagnosed with alcohol poisoning. John's primary care doctor was notified through his electronic health record. He was referred to a cardiologist who scheduled him for an appointment shortly after discharge. The attending physician prescribed him a beta blocker, which he picked up on the way home from the hospital. Once home, John's new cardiologist explained his treatment options and worked with John to develop a treatment plan that includes medication, lifestyle changes, and ongoing monitoring. James, on the other hand, received a pamphlet from his attending physician explaining the dangers of alcohol overconsumption, along with a list of treatment providers and support groups in the community. The doctor encourages James to seek treatment on discharge, but fearing confidentiality breach and lacking other options to connect James to care, he is discharged back home. Once home, James considers treatment, but his thoughts spiral. Would he even be able to commit to counseling? His work schedule is different every week. What if his children's school found out? Would he still be allowed to do pickup? What would his friends and family think? Does he really not have the willpower to moderate? James decides that this was a one-time mistake and he can manage this on his own. After all, he feels fine now. 3 months later, he's back in the emergency department. If James had been directly referred to a treatment provider during his crisis touch point, Just like how John was referred to a cardiologist, his path to treatment may have been successful and may have allowed him to avoid a second trip to the emergency department. We see James's situation reflected in our emergency departments locally. In 2022, San Diego County had more than 11,200 emergency department visits from Medi-Cal eligible beneficiaries with a primary substance use disorder. Out of those 11,200 visits, more than 1,500 resulted in hospitalizations. According to local follow-up rates for this population, we missed at least 6,500 opportunities to connect people to substance use treatment. In both mental health and substance use, we recognize that each person's journey to recovery is unique. Building a strong continuum of care means offering multiple avenues to treatment, ensuring support for people at every phase of life. But the data show that we need to build connections that more fully incorporate crisis care and inpatient care, whether those settings are part of our system of care or outside it, such as hospitals and emergency departments. We've identified several key strategies to help bridge this divide and reach more people. They include creating opportunities to coordinate and increase engagements in substance use treatment in hospital settings and emergency departments, expanding access to medication for addiction treatment or MAT, using every tool in the toolbox to create a comprehensive treatment plan, just like we do for people with hypertension, like our friend John, who was able to leave with a prescription for a beta blocker from the emergency department. And increasing use of proven harm reduction programs to reduce stigma and increase willingness to enter treatment. To be effective across these strategies, it requires a whole person approach to substance use treatment that considers each person's unique needs. A person's living environment, employment, interpersonal relationships, and physical health all significantly impact acuity and outcomes. Treatment that addresses just one aspect of a person's life, such as just their mental health care or substance use, can lead to incomplete and short-term solutions. Supporting long-term recovery requires a comprehensive care management system that considers the full spectrum of a person's life. To understand how a redesigned system would impact the need for services across levels of care, we developed the Substance Use Disorder Optimal Care Pathways Model, or SUD-OCP model. The SUD-OCP models the capacity needed at each level of care to effectively connect, engage, and support a growing population of clients throughout their recovery journey. It uses both local and national data to estimate the number of clients served and services they would require in a system that is designed to optimize treatment engagements. It also incorporates estimates of how demand for services would increase if we as a community can successfully implement foundational changes in how we reach individuals in crisis, break the cycle to prevent future hospitalizations, justice involvement, and mortality risk. And lastly, the SUD-OCP model responds to the unique challenges of substance use in a manner that is client-centered, community-based, and grounded in proven evidence-based practices. The major changes under an optimally designed model would significantly impact capacity need in the following 4 key areas. The first is transitional support, which provides short-term care for adults who don't need to be in the hospital but need additional supports to recover. Second is residential care, which are 24/7 clinical treatment beds. Third is outpatient care, which are community-based treatments and recovery support services. And the fourth is housing resources, which include shared housing for adults currently receiving treatment. Though not inclusive of all substance use care options, expanding these services will be most impactful in helping people get connected and stay connected to care throughout their lives. Since 2021, we have significantly increased our service capacity in residential care, outpatient care, and housing resources to better serve clients with substance use disorders. The total capacity as reflected in these figures represents the number of care episodes that could be provided to individuals over the course of 1 year. A care episode refers to the period between a client's admission and discharge. The transitional supports are here in gray to denote that they are not currently available. In the last 4 years, we've been working to increase substance use residential capacity by nearly 158%, outpatient capacity by more than 12%, and housing resources by nearly 67%. But there is still significant progress that we need to make to achieve a system that is optimally designed and ensures different modes and levels of care are available to people. Through the SUD OCP model, we estimate the service expansion needed to support increased treatment engagement while prioritizing outpatient community-based care. Here, we can see the modeled capacity increase in annual care episodes over 5 years for the county's Medi-Cal population, which aligns with the existing federal benchmarks called Healthy People 2030. Healthy People 2030 are data-driven national objectives for health and well-being, which include specific national targets for increased substance use treatment. Matching federal benchmarks would result in an additional 2,700 unique clients receiving substance use treatment, reflecting an 18% increase in unique clients over last fiscal year. As in other healthcare systems, it is important to establish targets. However, in light of impending Medicaid policy changes and the local budgetary challenges, capacity growth may not be achievable until the financial outlook improves. An optimal system of substance use treatment would require significant increases in treatment capacity across all levels of community-based care, as outlined in the table. It would establish transitional supports, which does not currently exist, and increasing capacity across the care system, 78% in residential care, 97% in outpatient care, and nearly 92% in housing resources. This vision would require extensive partnerships with our managed care organizations, hospitals, emergency responders, and social service providers. Building capacity is important, but is not enough on its own. Substance use conditions are complex, chronic conditions that require a system designed to provide ongoing supports, not just during a moment of crisis. We need a system that not only expands services, but also creates strong, lasting connections between them. Such connections require a robust care management system in which people can move seamlessly between different levels of care, from emergency departments and hospitals to outpatient treatment and long-term recovery support. This is about more than just adding beds or treatment slots. It is about creating a system that works for people who need it, meeting them where they are, and supporting them throughout their journey. And now I'll hand it back to Luke.
Thank you, Nicole. There are several challenges and opportunities to expanding our SUD system according to the SUD Optimal Care Pathways model. There are challenges with establishing new infrastructure, such as residential options, due to, for example, legacy administrative hurdles regarding conditional use permitting. We look forward to exploring opportunities to streamline such processes with city partners across the region. We face a well-documented behavioral health workforce shortage, as we've discussed in previous presentations, that can make staffing programs difficult. And we're challenged by the current structure of the substance use system and its strict adherence to the American Society of Addiction Medicine, or ASAM, to guide reimbursement. This limits funding and how we can spend funding on substance use disorder care. More flexibility in funding would allow us to provide additional evidence-based support, including direct funding for supported employment and social resources that are shown to improve outcomes. But above all else, we need to be able to manage ongoing operational costs of our basic work. Currently, most of the funding for substance use services comes from the federal Medicaid program, or Medi-Cal, in California. To receive the federal revenue through Medi-Cal, we're also required to contribute a significant match of county funds, which is primarily sales tax-driven realignment funding for substance use programs. However, the county is currently facing steep budgetary challenges. Current growth in realignment funding has not kept pace with the increased costs of services. There's also uncertainty about the ongoing availability of federal funding, and therefore we are not situated now to commit to specific expansion efforts. Last year, Medi-Cal funding covered 70% of costs within our substance use system. And while the details of future directions for the Medicaid program remains unclear, congressional proposals are already on the table would have a huge financial impact on the state of California if they were adopted. The loss of Medi-Cal funding would have ripple effects across all behavioral health programs in San Diego County, even as we implement strategies to mitigate losses and sustain existing services. The road ahead will indeed be very challenging if proposed federal policy changes make the vast reductions to Medicaid that they promise. Thank you. This concludes our presentation, and we are available for questions.
Thank you very much. I have a number of questions and comments, and this will also be an opportunity for my colleagues to ask any questions they have, as well as for our representative from the sheriff and from the district attorney's office. So I'm going to just begin with a couple comments and questions, and then hopefully my colleagues will also have some as well. There were kind of three main themes that I wanted to uplift and I wanted to ask about. I think the first main theme was how far we've come and what we've accomplished in the last 4 years. And I think some of the data that stood out to me was around our MCRTs, that we've gone, I think, from two to 44 teams in 4 years, and we've served over 8,300 clients and over 12,000 crises. I think that's remarkable. I want to commend the team for that work. I think that's very, very important. I also want to uplift the progress we've made on our crisis stabilization units. I was very impressed by that map. Maybe we can put it back up on the screen. We've built 4 new crisis stabilization units just in the last 4 years, or I guess 4 or 5, something like that. And that's incredible. And we now have 8 CSUs countywide. And then I'd say the other thing that really stood out to me was just the growth in our treatment slots that we've increased over the last 4 years since 2021. We've added over 5,000 new treatment slots over these sort of different modalities that you guys discussed. So that I just want to take a moment to acknowledge 5,000 new treatment slots, 4 new CSUs, 44 MCRTs. That's a lot. That's impressive, and I just really appreciate not just the work of our county team, but I know a lot of the providers are here today, and I want to thank you all for your partnership and for the hard work that you've brought to make these tremendous strides in tackling behavioral health in San Diego County. So before we move on to kind of what comes next and moving forward, I want to just take a moment to acknowledge how far we've come and what we have done. I think the second piece that really did stand out to me was the clarity of vision around optimal care pathways and what we're trying to build out, what it would look like to have an optimal capacity system in 5 years, and the granularity and the attention to detail to really map out in a clear way what those slots need to be. So if we could put that slide back up, that would be great. This was the one that looked at transitional support, residential care, outpatient care, and housing resources, and looked at what we're attempting to achieve over the next 5 years. If we can get that slide back, that would be great. What I have in my notes here is that we've gone from, in terms of transitional support, in 2021 we had 0 slots, and still in 2025 we have 0 slots. And our goal in 5 years, and I think this is a good goal to benchmark, is 450 transitional support slots. Similarly, around residential care, we had 1,900 more or less in 2021, going to 4,900 or almost 5,000 today. So that's really almost a 3,000 slot increase. and that we want 3,000 more residential care slots within 5 years. So that's 3,000 more of the residential care slots. In the outpatient treatment, that outpatient care, that's where I saw the most ambitious goals. And that was 9,000 more slots within 5 years, from 9,000 to 18,000, so 9,000 more slots. And then with housing resources, around 2,400 more slots. So that, I want to take a moment to sit with that. I think that is ambitious. Those are goals I'm willing to hang my hat on and say, let's do this. Let's make this happen. 4,500, 3,000, 9,000, 2,400. These are real numbers. They're concrete numbers. They're specific numbers. They're based on an assessment about how we provide the right kind of care in the right places before people are in crisis. They're based on a data-driven analysis of where we have gaps in our current behavioral health system around our county and where we really do need to do more. And it builds on the incredible work that we've already done. So I'm sure we'll talk more about these goals as the day goes on. The third thing, though, I want to talk about is this last piece around Medicaid and around funding. And so this is where I had some questions, actually. You identified in your remarks that that we have significant funding risks, kind of given the conversations that are happening in Washington, and there's a lot of uncertainty, and I think we all agree that that is true, that there's a lot of uncertainty. So I wanted to better understand, if the Republican Congress does slash $880 billion from Medicaid, which I know provided over $580 million in funding for behavioral health services to San Diego County last year, if these cuts move forward, what does this mean for our ability to, number one, deliver on those goals that we just outlined, and number two, maintain the 5,100 new slots that have already been added?
So as I noted in the remarks that I made during the presentation, the Medicaid program, which is Medi-Cal here, of course, is really significant, and in some ways especially significant for our ability to sustain substance use disorder care. It's a 70% from the federal government, 30% local match ratio.
70% federal, 30% local.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep. And so, so disproportionately, we rely upon the federal Medicaid program, or Medi-Cal, to support this work. Though, again, we, don't know at this time what the result, of efforts in Washington, D.C. are going to be. A significant change to the Medicaid program that would reduce flowing of those funds to the state of California and ultimately to localities would have a disproportionate impact on our ability, as you note, certainly to expand, but also to sustain the services that we currently have. It is right, I think, to suggest and to have in mind that significant cuts to the Medicaid program would create real challenges for us in sustaining just existing capacity.
Thank you. That's very upsetting. I mean, honestly, it's very disturbing and very upsetting. I'm really impressed with the work that this team has done. Again, I'm a data-driven person, to be able to have gone in and identify what our real gaps are, and I just thought this slide was just tremendous, right? That these goals of 456 more transitional support slots, somewhere in the neighborhood of about 3,000, approximately 4,000 or 3,000 more residential care slots, outpatient care, about 9,000 more outpatient care slots, housing resources, about 2,400 more slots. Those are amazing goals, and I personally am committed to driving those forward. I think that these are goals that we as a county should aim for, but the fact that our ability to deliver the services we need for our region, people who are struggling with fentanyl addiction and opioid addiction and mental health crisis and are living on our streets and are underneath our overpasses, are going to school and can't make it through the day, is threatened because of Medicaid cuts. I'm very upset by this. I know I'm not upset with you. You're not cutting the Medicaid. You're just sitting there. Don't mean to be upset at you, but I am. I'm upset. This is not right. So thank you for your work, and I'd love to sort of have a conversation about the Medicaid piece at some point. But with that, Supervisor Montgomery Stepp.
Thank you so much for this part of the presentation. I will have comments as we go, but I am, as I was looking through the presentation, I remembered Dr. Bergman, you being summoned to the city, to the Economic Development and Intergovernmental Relations Committee, and you doing a presentation and me not knowing what you were talking about, right? And I think I mentioned that to say that, you know, probably most people in the room are a lot smarter than me, but this is very complex. And the fact that you all, Kim, are building out a system as opposed to being extremely reactive and playing kind of whack-a-mole with people. Instead, you're looking at an entire system and, you know, sort of plugging in the needs within the entire continuum of care is very encouraging to me, and I'm just glad I understand a little bit more than I did about 4 years ago. And so I can only imagine you know, how many members of the public could be feeling about a lot of the information and kind of, you know, being able to step back and take sort of a bird's eye view of what the system is all about. I think you do wrap that up, though, when saying that it's not just about putting people in beds or finding a place for people to be, it is about supporting people throughout their entire lifetimes, because we are talking about folks who will need those types of supports within this system that we are committed to building out. They will need these services their entire lives. And my hope is that the focus sort of on long-term care will allow us to have a more efficient system so we're not dealing in crisis all the time, which is super expensive. So that's the hope. So I'm glad that, you know, there's a very, we're facing very daunting times and a lot of uncertainty around the federal government in Republican control right now. With the goal of cutting a lot of these programs that are helping our most vulnerable community members. But kind of one of the silver linings for me is that the vision that is attached to this model includes a lot of community-based care, and so we can find ways to build upon that, because we are going to need that, certainly. So I just have a couple of kind of more general questions about MCRT, and then about the chart here too. If you could briefly describe a bit more in detail the efforts that were made by the county to build out the mobile crisis response teams and the training that was involved. You know, going from 2 to 44 is like, we can say, oh, yeah, that's great, right? But I'm sure there was a lot involved in that. So could you briefly kind of walk us through what was involved?
Mm-hmm. Sure. So as was noted, this was done in deep partnership between the county and community-based providers. So and the two working here in San Diego County are Exodus up in North County and Telecare across other regions of the county. So really significant partnerships there. There were lots of different facets of this work. One of the things that we were really committed to in San Diego County was finding efficiencies in developing MCRT that would provide some relief to law enforcement agencies that have historically been quite burdened by behavioral health-related calls, calls coming through the 911 system in particular. So there are some jurisdictions that have mobile crisis services that are accessible, as ours is, through through a number that may be an access and crisis line like number in San Diego County. Anyone at this point may call 988. I want to highlight to access mobile crisis response team services. MCRTs, though, are also available through 911 dispatch. And that is a piece of this work that, again, not every jurisdiction develops, but we were very committed to that. I think it reflects the sort of spirit of partnership with municipalities that we took in doing this, and with the importance of sort of threading to law enforcement. And that was also a lot of work, let me just say, to sort of develop the right criteria that people working in dispatch would review and consider in making decisions about diversion, establishing processes for that, and doing a lot of training to sort of, to optimize that. I would note that that we do see sort of variable optimization of threading from 911 to MCRT across our region. It's a thing that we within behavioral health services are continuing to put resources towards, really through training mostly, towards the optimization of 911 driven calls. So that was, that was intensive, I guess labor intensive, and just has involved lots and lots of community conversations, law enforcement conversations, collaboration with all of those different agencies. I would note that the Sheriff's Department has been a stalwart partner and a really critical partner in this work. The District Attorney's Office has also been really critical in helping us shape these services. And I also just want to highlight as a last note that San Diego County is now particularly richly fortified with this kind of service as a broad category, because San Diego County was a very early adopter of what's called co-response, which is law enforcement plus clinician response, which is the PERT program here that most folks have heard of. And just to sort of make clear, the MCRT is a really important complement to the PERT program, not a replacement of the PERT program. It enables us to have a more finely tailored response to specific scenarios. And so where we are highly confident that there's a low risk of violence, then MCRT is appropriate. Where we see elevated risks of potential events that could result in injury, then we would edge towards a PERT or a law enforcement driven response. So these are complements. It's not that MCRT replaces PERT. They work in complement. And part of what that means is that a lot of the capacity that we're seeing in MCRT response is new capacity. It's capacity that folks in behavioral health crisis may not have sort of had the benefit of at all before. We are getting care to people who likely would have not gotten any care before. And the whole question of access in behavioral health, which anyone who has tried to schedule a behavioral health appointment would know viscerally, it is a huge issue. Mm-hmm. And so the fact that we've got this resource here so richly developed that is so significantly about expanding that kind of access, I think is really important.
Thank you so much for that. Just one last question before we move on, and this is about this slide here, noticing that the outpatient care services, tremendous progress, but a little slower than the residential care and housing resources. What are some of the challenges that the county has faced in expanding that particular level of care? And what are we doing to kind of proactively, so to speak, overcome those challenges in order to meet these 5-year goals?
I think the challenges across the board, the main challenge has been workforce and having enough staff to be able to expand. And I don't know if that addresses your question unique to outpatient care. In terms of unique to outpatient care, I would I do think it's just primarily workforce. I don't think would you add anything, Luke, to that?
The other thing that may be reflected on that is relates to some of what we discussed at the beginning of this, that historically there's been a disproportionate emphasis on crisis and on crisis response. And so much of what we hear about in the context of, the current homelessness crisis and just sort of, service needs conversations generally is about more detox, right? That is the thing that we sort of hear most frequently. Part of what you see in these data, of course, in looking at that, approximately 9,000 slot expansion on the outpatient side, is that this model reflects that an emphasis that there needs to be greater emphasis on that ongoing, not crisis, but ongoing care component. If we make that more robust, then we should see diminishing needs for services like detox. But thinking in that way does require shifting the narrative a little bit. Yeah.
Yes, it's very important to do so, but I think, we let the data and the facts lead us, and this is sort of a more long-term approach to shifting that narrative. But this is very important, so thank you, Vice Chair, for bringing this forward, and I'll just end with my questions and comments at that point and probably continue them later on in the discussion. Thank you.
Supervisor Anderson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First of all, I concur with my colleagues. Outstanding work in a short period of time. When you think about where we were prior to COVID and where we are today, we made, when I say we, I mean you and your team, made great strides in moving us forward. One of the concerns I have, and I was looking for the page that talked about an emergency room, as we reduce the need for emergency room intervention, we're saving a lot of money in that direction because that's the most expensive care possible. How are you viewing, or what are we doing in moving towards controlling our own destiny, knowing that 2/3 of the money is coming from, or 3/4 of the money is coming from the federal government, and it may not be there? So have we looked at the finances of this, and how are we looking at it? I want to be helpful, but I can't be helpful if I don't know what we're doing.
So, yes, we are looking at the finances of this. Again, any sort of specific strategic direction that we would take to kind of mitigate those challenges, like we haven't developed yet because we don't know what those challenges are going to be yet, right? Things are still preliminary with respect to what it is that may happen with Medicaid. One of the things that we have devoted a lot of time to today, and that will be a significant part of broader behavioral health response that will alleviate pressure on emergency departments in particular, are crisis stabilization units. So Dr. Esposito sort of has, highlighted the significance of those in the context of SB 43. Very significantly, those services are reimbursed through the Medi-Cal program, right? So that's just an example of, kind of where we see a really important part of our continuum that does drive toward efficiencies, does drive towards better long-term outcomes, and is a domain of work that is heavily reliant upon the public insurance system. I want to give Dr. Esposito a chance to add anything.
I would just emphasize that, the main thing here about optimization of these services to community-based services does help the finances. So I think that's a really important contribution to our efforts.
Supervisor, if I might just add as well to that question, I think the team has been really great about seeking out grant opportunities that help us get services started. I think the challenge with grants is that they're often for one-time funding and not ongoing cost of service delivery. So they really help us build infrastructure components that get things started, and then we have to navigate, which usually comes from the Medicaid programs, of how we fund the ongoing costs.
Okay, thank you very much. I want to give my colleagues, I think Sheriff Commander Jim Emig here. Great, hi, Jim.
Good morning. The Sheriff's Office wholeheartedly supports expansion in mental health services and substance abuse services. We've made great strides in San Diego County, but we still have a lot of work to do. MCRT and the CSUs have both been a great response to our county mental health and substance abuse issues. Both the CSUs and MCRT teams allow sheriff's deputies to quickly connect individuals with services and then return to their other responsibilities. I think Dr. Bergman may have looked at my notes. I also want to add that even though MCRT is a great resource and we all want to reach these people early before they reach crisis, the safety net's not going to take care of everybody, and there's going to be people that aren't grabbed by the safety net. And for this reason, we still need to maintain our PERT teams, which will allow law enforcement to deal with these individuals when they're in crisis and when there's public safety concerns that these individuals are experiencing. So thank you for the time.
Thank you. And I just want to just express my gratitude for the Sheriff Department's really wonderful collaboration on a lot of these initiatives. I think MCRTs and CSUs are perfect examples of it. They only work because there's enough communication and we know who's going to show up. And I think that's been really positive over the last few years. So thank you for all of your leadership. We also have Chief Deputy District Attorney Rachel Solove here.
Thank you. On behalf of District Attorney Summer Steffen, she apologized that she could not be here today, but it's my pleasure to be here on her behalf. I also want to thank Supervisor Lawson-Remer and the rest of the board for bringing attention to these important issues with this conference. I have a couple comments on perspectives from our lane of the criminal justice system. But first, I also want to thank Dr. Bergman and Dr. Esposito for the partnership and the patience and the work. I remember, Luke, years ago when you first came here and you explained your vision of flipping the pyramid and sitting with you in front of the board, supporting crisis stabilization and MCRT is a unique partnership that maybe people don't think of as the district attorney and behavioral health services working together for that. And it has been really a joy to see your vision become more of a reality. And as the supervisors have indicated, we've made huge strides even in spite of a pandemic and all that. So I just, both of you are huge assets to this county, and I just wanted to take a minute to recognize that. From the criminal justice perspective, from the justice system perspective, we know that there's a strong prevalence of mental health and substance use disorders in the criminal justice system. And we recognize that to address that, it needs to be on all fronts, and that is supporting those upstream efforts to keep people out of the justice system in the first place, because if we can keep people out of the justice system in the first place, we are far better serving the public than addressing the issues once they're in the justice system. But we also need to work on expanding those services to people who are in the justice system, who are criminal justice involved, to make sure that they don't come back. And so the two sort of prevalent issues that we're seeing right now on our horizon is expanding substance use treatment to provide treatment for those individuals who are facing the mandated treatment offenses pursuant to Prop 36. And also addressing the ability to safely respond to the incompetent to stand trial population, which we've seen a lot of challenges and shifts and legislative changes where a lot of responsibility for that is now being shifted to us here in the county. And so those are issues that, that we seek to really work on to provide balanced responses to be able to protect public safety and also provide the services and treatments to those individuals who need it. So we look forward to the future of working together with our county partners. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So now we will hear from our healthcare providers and policy stakeholders. Each of these pre-registered speakers have 2 minutes. So if you are a hospital provider who would like to speak, I'm about to call your name. We have Dr. Steve Coe with UC San Diego Health, Emily Weir with the San Diego Regional Policy and Innovation Center, Josh Bohan with Father Joe's, Don Myers with Palomar Health, Julie Hayden with BHAP, and Robin Sales with BHAP. So Dr. Koh.
Hi, good morning. I think it's still morning. Thank you very much for having us and the invitation to UC San Diego. I'm a practicing psychiatrist, and in fact, my day job starts in the ED every morning in Hillcrest Hospital. From our experience, there's been two moments in time how we have looked at substance use in this country. First is when we said all substance users, it's their fault, right? That if you use, you're making that choice. So we should just send you to jail or to punish you. We've sort of gotten past that. We now understand this is a disease, and that's a good thing. The second evolutionary process that we're going through now is what we're talking about today, which has to do with, is substance use an acute disease model or a chronic disease model? We firmly believe that the data supports that this is a chronic disease model, just like diabetes, hypertension, things of that nature. In order to do that, the answer to the treatment cannot be emergency rooms or acute hospitals per se. But just like what the district attorney's office has done in the past to come up with a diversion model, we also need to embrace that to ensure we could get these patients to the right place of care, which is preventative care and chronic level of care. And in order to do this, we've been very successful in partnering not only with the county, but also City of San Diego. We have created a pretty unique model called Transitional Support Team in our EDs. That's worked out very, very well. And that's been a key ingredient in order to make sure that we transition these patients to our community-based organizations who are behind me today. Without whom, and many of these organizations are supported by the county, we cannot do our jobs. This is a chronic disease that has been approached from an acute disease model, and it's time for us to stop that, and we appreciate the county to continue doing their work on this space. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Emily Weir.
Good morning or afternoon. My name is Emily Weir. I'm the Chief Policy and Strategy Officer for the Policy and Innovation Center. I wanted to reflect on one of the things that Dr. Bergman and Dr. Esposito mentioned in their remarks, the need for a robust, diverse, well-paid, well-trained workforce. You'll remember in 2022, the county supported a really important report that highlighted the need for 18,500 new behavioral health workers to address all of the various different programs that we heard about today. We are pleased at the Policy and Innovation Center to be partnering with the County of San Diego along with Social Finance and Trailhead Strategies on implementing a program that will do just that. And we expect that to launch in the next couple of months. This program will offer no-cost trainings, paid internships, apprenticeships, and stipend programs, 0% interest forgivable loans with 5 years service requirements in the public behavioral health system, capacity building support to increase clinical supervision and internship opportunities in county-funded behavioral health settings. We anticipate that this program will serve about 2,000 people over 5 years, and these are in the very fields that are of most need: peer support specialists, addiction counselors, case managers, licensed clinicians, nurses, nurse practitioners, and others. To the question around, this Medicaid funding challenges, this program is supported through Mental Health Services Act funding from the state. There will also be additional benefits for the current behavioral health workers. We anticipate hosting an informational session later this month. We know that there's been a lot of stakeholders who've been involved, and we have loved to share more information with all of the supervisors, and it's just a pleasure to work with the county team on this. We're really excited for what's to come. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Josh Bohannon. Sorry.
Sorry for the handwriting, Supervisor. Josh Bohannon, I'm with Father Joe's Villages. I'm the Chief Strategy Officer for San Diego's largest and oldest homeless services provider. And we're one of the community-based organizations that work with individuals who are experiencing a behavioral health or substance use disorder crisis. And so what we know from our work in the field is that we have to be with somebody along their entire journey, from when they come into guest services, through outreach, providing harm reduction tools and education as to some dangers of using substances, or where can I get treatment, where can I get support, in building that trust. Our street health team does that as well. So it's very similar to MCRT. We meet up with people who might be going through crisis, provide medical care, but we also have psychiatry teams as well embedded within these programs. And so what we're seeing is that along the spectrum of care that people are needing to receive, there are different levels of services that are required. That's why we just created a 248-bed sober shelter where people can live there for a year and be interconnected to our federally qualified health center. So they have a place to reside, because that's a missing gap as well. And from the provider perspective, we just need to continue to invest along the entire continuum, along the entire spectrum. Yes, we need these spaces for people to live and recover and receive outpatient treatment and ongoing treatment, but we also still desperately need these like acute spaces where people can have more concentrated care, psychiatric, withdrawal management, whatever it is that individual needs. So we're in support of this holistic and comprehensive approach to looking at all of these things. I think that when you look at other counties, San Diego is much further along in how we really explore and define and determine what we need as a region. And so I just applaud this work. There's still a lot more to do, and we need this work done through every touch point, from entry to acute care to recovery, stabilization. And so we're working through that. And as partners, we're here to help you, the county.
Thank you very much. Don Myers from Palomar.
Good morning, Don Myers from Palomar Health, and I'm in charge of behavioral health at Palomar, and I want to first thank Dr. Bergman and Dr. Esposito for their work, and really share that, we, district hospitals are disproportionately shared of Medi-Cal patients, so we see our financial future is very challenging, and we'd like to be part of the conversation as we continue to see what rolls out from the feds about how we're going to manage what we have, let alone what we aspire to have in 5 years. I'd hate to see us go back to what we were doing many years ago with all the people in our emergency departments. It's gotten much better. We still are challenged by the elderly patient population, those with dementia, those who come from board and care, those come from IMDs, who get to our hospitals and then are housed on our medical floors for months when they don't have a criteria to be on a medical floor, but there's no place for them to go. So I think we still have opportunity with the Conservator's Office and finding opportunities as our patient population continues to age. Thank you for your work.
Thank you very much. Julie Hayden.
Hi, everyone. Thank you. I am with the BHAB committee, and also I am the CEO of East County Transitional Living Center, 540 beds for homeless, private funded, and Genesis Recovery Licensed Drug Treatment Program, county funded. So one of my offerings to this committee, first of all, is to thank everyone. I agree with the progress that has been made for so many options if people are in need. I agree with keeping PERT because I've had great success with the stabilization units and the mobile crisis unit, but a lot of times if people are willing to get help, but when they're in an active psychotic state and it's causing problems that are not willing, having the PERT team is really a big piece of that. I would love to see initiatives, and I'll include myself in trying to get this started, with collaboration with more of the private sector, even private insurance, as well as publicly funded and nonprofit organizations doing the same services, along with faith-based programs. We've had some of this collaboration started already with community-based organizations, but just seeing that increase so that there's more continuity of care in the whole continuum of care. If they start getting help in one spot, that we can kind of hold their hand all the way through to have more access than what's only provided by county and public funding. So that's one offering, and then I just want to remind everyone, as much as we come into the center of our county, the rural areas that surround us have a huge need for addiction treatment and mental health, and sometimes they're not close to some of what we have been building and providing. So just keeping those rural areas in mind. I think telehealth has helped in certain areas, but just providing that service in all areas of our county. Thank you.
Thank you. And Robin Sales.
Good morning. So my name is Robin Sales. I'm a resident of District 3, and I'm the current chair of the Behavioral Health Advisory Board. This is my second year as chair. I'm also the chair of our Justice Nexus subcommittee, and I've been involved with that for the last 3 years. And our goal has been to look at the behavioral health crisis in the jails. And this is a big concern because there are many folks with co-occurring behavioral health issues that are in our jails, and it's our belief that the treatment that people receive in jails could be much better and much more sustained. But the real issue is to try to divert people away from jail before they get to that point. And we advocate and educate BHAB members and community members on the issues that are occurring in our county jails. And we're very supportive of the optimal care pathway for substance use disorder and the continuum of care within county behavioral health services. But we will not like to see and don't want to see people going in and out of jail when they have behavioral health crises. Today in the Voice of San Diego, there was an article about care court and a family that was dealing with someone, their loved one, who has been part of care court but has been in and out of jail. And we feel that people are not getting the treatment they need when they're in the county jails and are better served by community treatment, by sustained community treatment, not just a one-off, but and the Medi-Cal transformation, CalAIM, should start helping people transitioning out of jail into the community. But what do we do before then? How do we get people and catch them before they end up in that situation? So we urge the Board of Supervisors to fund, thank you, housing.
Thank you. Appreciate it. So next we will hear from our municipal partners. We have some mayors and council members and city officials. Each representative from a city in the County of San Diego will have 2 minutes to provide their comments. We'll start with Mayor Esther Sanchez of Oceanside.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Supervisors. Thank you so much for having this and also working with cities. We desperately really need to be able to work collaboratively. Thank you so much for the investments in the CSU, at the Live Well Center in Oceanside, and also the upcoming 14, I believe it's 14 beds at psych unit at Tri-City Medical. We really have been very excited about the MCRT model that you've really pushed forward, and in fact, our city would like to do something like that, some kind of a mobile rapid response. We do have PERT, we do have HOT, the homeless outreach team, but really we need something more like a MCRT. So we're hoping to work with you on something like that. We are hitting a bit of a reset button with respect to our homeless, and obviously that conversation includes our behavioral health ability to provide services. But in terms of housing, we are looking to continue to be able to work with the county, like to get No Place Like Home housing vouchers, to be able to have like the smaller urban models of like the Greenbrier project that we have in Oceanside, that's like 60 units, and to have that over and over and have that kind of urban model that would have a few beds in terms of our being able to house our mental health folks that need that extra help, that's wraparound services. So we do feel very strongly that workforce is an issue for the county. We need to be able to have social workers. We need to be able to have mental health workers to be able to work with us on the MTRTs, and so we support your efforts. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Rebecca Jones, San Marcos.
Good morning, and thank you, Supervisor Lawson-Remer, for your efforts, and Montgomery Stepp, and then also Anderson. I'm so happy to be here today to share with you some of the things that we've done in San Marcos, but I stand here not only as a mayor, but also as a child of an alcoholic father that actually ended up dying from liver failure. It's been almost 20 years, but I know that the toll it takes on families is great, and it's a huge loss for both the lives of the family, but also the people that are addicted, so I know this very intimately. So in San Marcos, we are home to One Safe Place. We really appreciate the efforts that our District Attorney Summer Steffen has done to help people that have been abused, not only people with addiction issues, but people that have been abused and have a safe haven for them. And also our partners at the Sheriff Department, we are a contract city, and we appreciate everything that they do as well. And Dr. Luke Bergman, we've met on several occasions with Supervisor Desmond's office. What I would like to mention is during the pandemic, we saw a lot of issues within our community, what was happening with our kids. So one of the things that we did in the city is we spent $3 million and invested in our Let's Face It Together with our school district. That was one of the things that I think really has helped our kids. I think efforts like that would be greatly appreciated because we do need to help kids while they are in school. And a lot of them are really hurting. So anyway, I appreciate what you're doing today, and I support your efforts wholeheartedly. And anything we can do in the city of San Marcos, we are an innovative city, and we're here to support all that you're doing in our communities and with the future, with our kids also, and with addiction issues, because we do appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We also have Senior Advisor for Government Affairs, Deanna Akers, here from the City of San Diego.
Good afternoon, and thank you, Vice Chair Lawson-Remer. Supervisors, Drs. Esposito and Bergman, thank you for the opportunity to speak today. And thank you for your continued willingness to work with Mayor Todd Gloria and the City of San Diego to provide proper care for individuals in need. What's been stated many times before, not being able to provide the right care at the right time for individuals in need, especially those with substance use disorders, puts incredible strain not only on the individuals who need the care, but also our emergency departments, our first responders, and the entire continuum of care. So this work is absolutely important and has a lot of downstream improvements, and making improvements to the way that we provide care is hard work. It requires urgent, dynamic, and collaborative action, and I recognize that's exactly what's being talked about today. I'm cautiously optimistic that we're really moving in the right direction with the conversation here today, the effort to expand services at Paradise Valley Hospital, improvements to efficiencies, expanding MCRTs, et cetera. We're glad to be here today to support and offer our support from the City of San Diego for these efforts, especially for improving care for individuals with substance use disorders. And we will continue to be supportive of the ambitious 5-year goals that were shared here today, and we're very glad to see those listed. Lastly, I would just reiterate for our entire region our need to fight back against any of the proposed cuts to Medicaid and Medi-Cal. Those will have drastic and dramatic impacts for our ability to serve our residents and serve those in need in San Diego, and if enacted, will increase homelessness, exacerbate our behavioral health crisis, and worsen health outcomes for all San Diegans. Again, thank you for the opportunity to speak. Thank you for this work. I appreciate your collaboration.
Okay, thank you so much. So we now open the floor for general public comments. In accordance with board rules, each speaker has 1 minute. A reminder that non-English speakers requiring interpretation will receive twice the allotted time. Andrew, please call the speakers.
Thank you, Vice Chair Lawson-Remer. We have 20 requests to speak on this item, 5 in person and 3 requesting to speak by phone. 5 in person, 15 requesting to speak by phone. Also note that we received 3 e-comments, 2 of those in opposition and 1 neutral. For any individuals that requested to speak on this item by phone, please dial into the conference line using the instructions that were provided to you. We'll begin with the in-person speakers, starting with the individuals in favor, followed by those in opposition. As your name is called, please come forward and stand on the arrows until it is your turn to speak. I'll be calling you in groups of 3, so I'll ask you to please listen for your name. I'd like to invite forward the following individuals: Brian Bowers and Robert Gurman. You'll have 1 minute to address the board. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Supervisors. My name is Brian Bowers, and I work alongside dedicated SUD professional staff and support individuals on their path to recovery. I'm also the executive director of a nonprofit committed to helping those struggling with SUD find the care they need. I sit on the executive committee of the Alcohol and Drug Service Providers Association, and I want to commend the board for prioritizing strategies to increase treatment capacity and optimal pathways for vulnerable members of our community. The need is urgent, and expansion is essential. I must also express concern about the looming threats of Medicaid cuts and the impact they would have on our existing system. If we expand without securing protections for our current funding, we risk devastating loss of services for those already in care. We cannot afford to build new capacity while watching existing programs collapse due to financial instability. I urge this board to incorporate safeguards that ensure SUD providers remain funded, workforce shortages are addressed, and critical SUD dollars are protected. Thank you.
Next speaker, please. On a call for Robert Gurman. Now go ahead and call the speakers in opposition. I'll call for the first 3 speakers. I'd like to invite Kira Noway, Michael Brando, and Jeff Noway. If I've called your name, please come forward. Again, you'll have 1 minute to address the board, and please begin by stating your name for the audio record.
My name is Jeff. I want to point out that it is utterly ridiculous that this board is convening to come up with a plan to address behavioral health when everything this board does is with underhanded intent to actually destroy people's health. Egging on erratic behavior. Are you kidding me, Andrew? This board played a very key local role in the international psychological operation known as COVID. There are no contagious viruses. Germ theory is a pillar lie here. What the people are experiencing is illness from toxicity, from being poisoned. They are deliberately poisoned by the fluoride added to our tap water, the glyphosate added to food, the chemtrails dumping toxins from our skies daily, the nefarious shots pushed directly into arms. And let us not forget the increase in EMF radiation with the rollout of 5G in 2020. Conveniently, while this board put the local people on lockdown, we do not consent.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Michael, why are the children suffering? Because of diabolical liars that sit up here on this dais and have told lies for the last 5 years. You know who I'm talking about. It actually includes almost every single one of you. How can you expect children to have good mental health when you're living in a paradigm of falsities, false narratives? Monica, you're one of the worst offenders up here. When you talk about shifting the narrative, you better believe it's going to shift, and it's already shifting. More people are finding out about you too, Andrew, and you, how you push the nonsense. This has created the climate of people having mental health issues. Jeff was right. You actually aid and abet what has happened. COVID-19 psychological operations and the war for technocracy. David A. Hughes, check it out, PDF, free online. Wake up.
Thank you. As the next speaker is coming forward, I'd like to invite the final speaker in person, allegedly Audra.
Hello, my name is Kara. I come before this board today bewildered yet again. Why are we allowing foxes to guard hen houses? Why is Tara Loss of Reason Reamer calling any sorts of shots in regards to the mental health industrial complex? Tara just recently figured out how to arrive on time to these meetings. However, we do remember her track record of her many absences and arriving late to most meetings in her last term. She even arrived wearing sunglasses for the duration of several meetings. If I did that in my profession, and a fellow employee did that, or I was doing it, they would say that I had a substance abuse issue. You don't get to wear sunglasses inside when you're a professional supposedly leading this county. It's insane. But it's pretty typical for those sitting in that chair to have substance abuse issues. Just look at Nathan Fletcher and his history of substance abuse issues. In regards to Tara's tardiness and absences, I just want to remind Tara that you're supposed to go to SANDAG meetings.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
My person uses the name Audra. So 2 out of 10 people have a substance abuse disorder. Which 2 of you? There's 10 of you sitting on this dais, plus you 2. So you kind of add probably another one in there. But I would say Tara, probably Joel, maybe Luke, right? Because you like to really medicate children too. And it's interesting when we talk about substance use disorders when we're providing needles and pipes to people. How cool is that, right? Don't do these drugs, or we're going to give this to you, but we're going to punish you for it, and then, you know, really medicate you up. It's just very sad to see you're involving children in this when you guys are the ones that have the behavioral health issues, and you're trying to make it like this is a new thing. And thank God you guys have been engaging and aiding and abetting the illegal immigration, because federal funding is going to be cut, so you can't put a bunch of people away and medicate them like you want to do. Good on you guys.
We'll now hear from those that requested to speak by phone. When it is your turn to speak, you will be unmuted and you will hear a recording that will tell you to begin your comments after the beep. And I'll remind the callers they should mute their TV or live video stream before they begin speaking. We will start with our first caller.
If you want to help the homeless, addicts, and mentally unstable, there should already have been a plan in place to provide adequate support. State or Fed funding drying up is nothing new. This should have been discussed long ago, not wait for an August update. That you may not have around or impose new taxes, please look at every contract for waste, fraud, or abuse. And could people want to respect their better working conditions more than money? Some people just want to help out, not profit off the unlucky patients. The equity statement says health inequities continue to persist based on race, ethnicity, sexual orientation, gender identity, and disability. Well, that's how it should be. Why these supposed inequities? What is billed as modern medicine seems to favor wallet-depleting psychotropic drugs.
Thank you. Now hear from the next caller.
Good afternoon. I am Mary Woods, and I'm the Regional Director of Telecare MCRT. The impact of MCRT services on our community have been extremely positive. As mentioned, since Telecare MCRT opened in 2021, we have accepted and responded to over 12,000 individuals. This fiscal year alone, Telecare MCRT has responded to over 6,300 referrals, and we are projected to accept and respond to 8,400 by the end of our fiscal year. Over 85% of MCRT interventions have diverted from higher levels of care, such as emergency departments. Less than 2% of our calls result in MCRT needing law enforcement co-response. MCRT satisfaction surveys show 99% of those served are given the referrals and links they need to ongoing behavioral health treatment to avoid mental health and substance use crises in the future. I want to mention our strong partnership with law enforcement. We meet with them on a regular basis to ensure we get the right people to the right services at the right time. Also, as mentioned by Dr. Bergman, MCRT has begun to respond to referrals from schools, and early feedback is very positive.
Thank you. Now hear from the next caller.
Hi, my name is Madison. Thank you for the chance to speak today about the crucial role of youth substance use prevention in addressing the broader behavioral health crisis in our county. It is essential that we recognize the importance of early intervention for substance use, especially when it comes to young people, to prevent more serious mental health issues down the road. I want to highlight the growing concern around cannabis use among our young people. While often perceived as a less harmful substance, research shows that regular cannabis use, especially during adolescence, is strongly linked to the development of mental health disorders, such as depression, anxiety, and even psychosis. The adolescent brain is still developing, and cannabis use can interfere with cognitive functions, increase vulnerability to mental health issues, and exacerbate underlying conditions. By preventing youth from using cannabis, we can reduce the risk of these more serious long-term mental health challenges. These help in preventing substance use in this vulnerable population so we can avoid escalating issues as they grow older. These prevention efforts not only...
Thank you. Now hear from the next caller.
Hello, this is Catherine Rhodes. What I want to say is, prior the county said they're only in charge of housing the severely mentally ill, homeless, in the unincorporated areas, and each city has to provide the housing. But now the county admits that they're 100% responsible for housing the SMI homeless. Like putting homeless in alcohol hotels through the Emergency Shelter Crisis Declaration, you can actually open up treatment beds for homeless SMI without conditional use permits, without CEQA. Because of our shelter crisis declaration. And just wanted to remind you, when the 2013 County of San Diego Behavioral Health Survey with NAMI documented that what the SMI homeless said they wanted is living in a place of my own, have greater privacy, avoid smokers, be reunited with children, and live with a significant other, including pets. And so, if you guys don't think you have a lot of money to do this, I can show you where you have a lot of money to actually expand everything. And
Thank you. On to the next caller.
Good afternoon, Board of Supervisors. My name is Becky Rapp, and I'm a parent and public health educator, here to urge the county to reconsider its approach to expanding the marijuana industry in the unincorporated area of the county. You saw and heard firsthand the extreme and unacceptable need for significant expansion of behavioral health care to residents who suffer from severe mental illness and or substance use disorder in our county. In efforts of prevention, it's imperative that we take a step back and carefully examine the long-term consequences of this devastating decision to expand the industry, the marijuana industry. Medical professionals will tell you high-potency THC products on the market and for sale today can have severe consequences on mental health, specifically for our teens and young adults whose brains have not yet fully developed. I suggest the county request and include specific research that tracks residents in our community who have suffered from psychosis.
Thank you. Now hear from the next caller.
Consuelo here. The most maddening part about this issue is that the simple and obvious facts regarding mental health will not be included in any county presentation, nor will there be any admittance of why there is a mental health crisis to begin with. Some simple facts. Government continues to force its people into compliance of whatever its demands. For example, receiving an experimental shot delivered at warp speed by an orange man. Government promotes harmful synthetic drugs from big pharma, mafia, pushers of fake medicine, yet will reject, vilify, even punish those choosing holistic healing remedies from nature. Government supporting mental disorders doesn't help, like being the opposite gender. I also must include statism with that. Both are actually trauma-induced delusions, and fortunately, both are curable. Government needs for society to be genderless, depressed, anxious, fearful, addicted, physically and mentally weak, in-debt, and dependent on them for everything. Reminder, our society...
Thank you. Next speaker.
Hi,
Hi, I just want to thank the Board of Supervisors for this time. My name is Frank Garcia. I'm Program Director with the Exodus Recovery Crisis Stabilization Unit in Vista and in Oceanside. I just want to highlight the positive impact of our CSUs within the community. One of our main goals is to decompress the overcrowded emergency departments. And so when we're talking about that system of care, we want to make sure that the EDs are available to take more medically compromised individuals, while the CSUs are able to take and address their psychiatric issues. The other goal that we have is decrease or eliminate unnecessary hospitalizations, because we know that can be a financial burden on the community and within the system of care. And so once we're able to get them out of that higher level of care, we want to make sure that we can connect them to aftercare services, so outpatient services, SUD services. And so 91% of our clients do.
Thank you. Now hear from the next caller.
Hi, Pam. Luke Bergman casually mentioned responding to K-12 school districts without elaborating on the new Children's Crisis Residential Care Facility and the 2023 law, AB 665, which encourages or sways minor children to consent to mental health treatment, either outpatient or admission into a residential center, leaving their family home without parental knowledge or consent. One pathway to get children away from their family is the new law of 2024, AB 1955, allowing school districts to keep secrets from parents regarding the trans agenda and their vulnerable children. If the child indicates any concern about telling their parents, educators and the so-called response team can help the children into a residential facility without parental knowledge. This is a diabolical plan to destroy children and families. I challenge you, Luke Bergman, to elaborate on AB 665 and AB 1955 on the next presentation. Try it. Go ahead. I dare you.
Thank you. Now hear from the next caller.
Hi, thank you. This is Peggy Walker. As a health educator, I just wanted to urge a robust focus on those 18 to 26 who are especially vulnerable to the risks of substance abuse. Also, I'd like to see a broader focus on prevention as part of a balanced, comprehensive response. Dealing with substance abuse early is critical to help stem the grave disabilities that are described in SB 43 and to address projected need for 9,000 more slots within 5 years. People at all ages just are not getting critical preventive education and information. Early prevention strategies would help cut high ER care demand, divert many from jail, and reduce overall treatment need. Thank you for considering this.
Thank you. Now hear from the next caller.
Hi, my name is Megan Stewart, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak today. The agenda item highlights the urgent need to expand behavioral health services. These investments are crucial for those struggling with mental health and substance use disorders. But so is prevention. As the county discusses improving behavioral health care, I urge the board to consider the role that tobacco and marijuana sales play in contributing to substance use disorders and behavioral health challenges in our county. Research shows that early exposure to substances like nicotine and marijuana can increase the risk of addiction and progression to more harmful substances. Prevention efforts should include stricter regulations on the sale and marketing of these substances. Marijuana, now widely commercialized in our county, is contributing to a surge in mental health challenges. Additionally, research confirms that early exposure to substances like nicotine and marijuana increase the risk of addiction. If we are serious about prevention, we need stronger regulations on the sale and marketing of these substances. The county has made historic investments in behavioral health, but without addressing the root causes of it.
Thank you. Now hear from the next caller.
Hello, this is Kelly McCormick. I'm a public health educator with a focus on youth substance use prevention.
I would like to thank the board for bringing forward this important issue, since greater resources and treatment options are desperately needed. As noted, drug use and dependence can have devastating effects, not just on the users themselves, but on their family, friends, the larger community, and of course, first responders, taxpayers, and so forth. Policies that support the marijuana industry are partly to blame. The commercialized marijuana industry operates much like the tobacco industry, with aggressive advertising geared toward young users. THC potency is dangerously high, and use is known to contribute to the development of cannabis-induced psychosis, schizophrenia, and suicidal thinking, especially when used by those under the age of 25 and when used daily. We do not need more marijuana outlets. We need more regulation, more warning labels, and more public education about the danger.
Thank you. On to the next caller.
Good afternoon. Thank you for letting me speak. My name is Kathleen Lippett. Drug policies that prevent every health behavioral issue the county deals with will continue to grow because the county has determined to exploit the weaknesses of individuals, whether it's gambling or drug abuse. The presentation acknowledged that these individuals would require ongoing care for the rest of their lives. That is not true if you prevent the issues to begin with. You prevent drug abuse, but you are creating sets and settings where it will be very difficult for these individuals to remain in recovery because they will go back to the setting and social cues that prompted their individual drug use journeys to begin with. There is nothing more expensive than treatment, and it does not help you to stay in recovery. Please put your money in prevention instead of recovery. And
thank you. Next caller.
It's true. The first 2 minutes for so-called pre-registered stakeholders means the community stakeholders are being treated as second-class citizens, and the terror is breaking the law with arbitrary enforcement of the board rules again. So question, how do non-fascists pre-register? Because I need 2 minutes to describe BS Director Bergman flipping the pyramid on common sense and Monica playing whack-a-mole with homeless people's lives. Because we know it's about how many can be locked up with the sweep. I would love for the county to run out of our tax dollars that have been wasted on evil. These programs have already failed to help along Tara the Terra, Monica the Minion, or Spaghetti-O Joel with his phone and food addictions. And what's wrong with Jimmy? He can't even show up. Maybe he's busy campaigning. But that's okay, because we regular people know that this item is more political theater from Tara. She's even treating it like it's her own personal political forum, which is going to be illegal too. This item is about Tara propelling herself on the backs of county residents. These supervisors have blown through our tax dollars. These supervisors refuse to even prioritize our basic core functions. So unless they're going to be locked up.
Thank you. We'll now hear from the final caller.
Barbara Gordon. I work with young people, and their mental health needs to be a priority. The association of alcohol, marijuana, and other drugs with suicidal thoughts can play a part in the actual suicide. The use of marijuana and other drugs are influential in the feeling of hopelessness by their toxic effects. The commercialization of marijuana has increased the false premise that marijuana is being natural or healthy. The main psychoactive ingredient, marijuana, THC, causes mental health and psychological problems. I am concerned the county has not adequately addressed the significance of adding 25 more marijuana businesses to the already 5 the county has. I am urging you to support those struggling with mental health issues and stop prioritizing the marijuana industry with their high THC products that have contributed to the mental health problems in people of all ages.
Thank you. And Vice Chair Lawson-Remer, that concludes public comment on this item.
Okay, thank you very much. Now we have an opportunity if my colleagues have any additional comments before we move to a motion on this item. Supervisor Montgomery Stepp.
Thank you, Vice Chair. I just have some kind of concluding comments. I want to thank our CAO, Ebony Shelton, for allowing this work to continue. Dr. Giardina, for your leadership over HHSA. Dr. Bergman, thank you so much for really setting out this model and just charging ahead with it. Dr. Esposito, thank you so much for your work. I think that we have quite a bit, to be proud of, but it's not just about that. It's about showing that dedication to this model can work, and that we are continuing to do what we can with the resources that we have to make sure that we are taking care of people. And I think that's what's important in what I'm pulling out of this presentation. Not that the work is done, and also not that the work is perfect, right? I think that we heard quite a few ideas coming from stakeholders about collaboration. We certainly heard concerns about Medicaid there's so much uncertainty around that. But I think it was important to set the stage for what the county has been doing. So I really do appreciate the time here, and again, the Vice Chair's leadership in getting this all together. So I think looking ahead as we continue to build out this behavioral health continuum of care, I do want to reiterate how important it is for us to be very intentional, very targeted, and outcome focused. We cannot approach the establishment of additional behavioral health beds and treatment slots as the goal of simply creating places to put people. This approach will not address the broader issue or optimally serve our neighbors in need. We are and we need to continue to think and act more holistically, being data focused on our decision making and prioritizing accessibility and quality of services above all else. It is critical that we are deliberate about how we build out our continuum of care so that we meet the individual needs of every resident that is receiving care. There is no one-size-fits-all approach, and with so many of our neighbors struggling, we owe it to them to do this work the right way. It's our duty to the public to ensure that we have services available when and where our residents need them. Just briefly regarding the conversation around Medicaid funding, it is absolutely critical that the public understand what we are facing. That has been touched on several times today. A huge portion of our funding here at the county that is used to provide behavioral health care, as well as other health efforts, are funded through federal Medicaid dollars. And that means that all of this work that the county has highlighted today about how we're building a continuum of care that can meet the needs of our most vulnerable residents, it's all in jeopardy right now. Nearly 1 million San Diegans are enrolled in Medi-Cal, the system overall. And that, of course, is the state's Medicaid program. That's nearly 1 in 3 San Diegans, and the prevalence of children in our county enrolled in Medi-Cal is even higher. A significant number of seniors and people with disabilities also rely on Medi-Cal to get the health care and supports that they need to live healthy and independent lives. So this is a true risk, and we have been working and will not accept this threat passively. This is something we're going to continue to be very vocal about, and we certainly encourage all of our residents and advocacy organizations to be vocal as well. The last thing I'll say, it's really important that we recognize this analysis that was done by the Center on Budget and Policy Priorities. It found that 91% of the dollars from entitlement programs, including Medicaid and food stamps, end up supporting the elderly, the seriously disabled, and members of working households, including their children. So this will have an impact certainly on our most vulnerable community members, but broadly on every single one of us. So I will close just by saying thank you again. This work is extremely important. I would also ask that as we talk about the motion here, that we certainly include the Public Defender's Office in this conversation. I know Care Court was brought up, and it is housed in the Office of the Public Defender. And so I think them being a part of this conversation is important as well. I did not thank in my comments our DA Chief Deputy that is here, Ms. Soliv, and also our Sheriff Commander Emick. Thank you so much also for being a part of this presentation. And that does conclude my comments. Thank you.
Supervisor Anderson, any last remarks?
I just want to thank staff and everybody that presented. I thought it was excellent. We're clearly headed in the right path. It's just a matter of speeding up the process and getting to those goals quickly. Thank you, Madam Chair, for having this hearing.
Thank you. Thank you to everyone who joined us today, our hospital partners, our city leaders, law enforcement, community. I can't emphasize enough how grateful I am for the work that you do every single day. You're the ones on the front lines. I also want to thank our team for all the work kind of at a broad strategic level of putting together the data and the analysis to get us where we are today and to chart a path forward to where we're going. I think we've absolutely made incredible progress in the last 4 years since 2021. As I mentioned previously, 5,100 new treatment slots, and that is more residential treatment, more recovery, meeting people where they're at. It's definitely making a difference, but we have quite a bit of a ways left to go. And what I really appreciated was the big audacious goals that were put out there in the presentation. It summed up, I was doing the math, to nearly 16,000 more treatment slots in all those different categories, which would really double capacity across San Diego County. So thank you for charting that course. I think it's the right course. I'm committed to those goals. I'm committed to ensuring that we as a county do everything we can to meet those goals and to prioritize those investments. But we have to acknowledge the reality of the moment that we sit in, where this plan was put together with a belief that the Medicaid system that we've been operating under, as limited and imperfect and constrained as it is, would continue. And since I started working on behavioral health issues, it's been abundantly clear that Medicaid is woefully inadequate as already configured, that it underpays for mental health beds, it underpays dramatically for substance use treatment slots. So we already are in a really difficult situation with the pretty significant gap between what services cost and what Medicaid pays just today. And the idea that, under the last budget that just went forward, it looks to be proposing to slash Medicaid funding to San Diego County by about 33%. That's a dramatic reduction in resources that we would have available. So in my mind, our work in this fight is not nearly enough to talk about expanding treatment access or protecting what we've already built. It's about standing up and saying our communities deserve health and deserve health care, and that if the Trump administration and Congress move forward with these Medicaid cuts, we do not risk only falling short on our audacious 2030 goals. We also risk losing some of the progress towards the 5,100 new slots we've added over the last 4 years. So this would mean treatment programs being shut down, crisis response teams being cut, and fewer people getting the care that they need. we cannot allow this to happen, so I certainly hope that we, as a region, can come together to do everything we can to fight to continue the Medicaid funding that we need for San Diego County to provide behavioral health care. With that being said, I have a motion. The motion is to, one, receive the information presented in the San Diego County Behavioral Health Care Board Conference that includes the Substance Use Disorder Optimal Care's Pathway Model as a framework for future planning. And second of all, to direct the CAO to return with updates on this Optimal Care Pathways Model in August of 2025.
I'll second.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion and a second. Please vote.
Aye.
Vice Chair Lawson-Remer, that motion passes unanimously with all supervisors who are present voting aye.
Okay, thank you very much. This meeting is adjourned.